All right. What's going on, everybody? This is the Uncanny Omar, and today I have the pleasure of having Kyle Higgins with us today. And thank you so much for joining us, Kyle.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely, man. I got to interview you a little bit when we were at C2E2. Didn't have that much time, but a few things have happened since then, like conventions. There's really not that many conventions these days because of everything
Sure.
that's going on.
That is accurate. Yeah.
And
I
yeah,
being
man. At the time, I think when I was talking to you, you were about. Let me see. You were exiting out of Power Rangers, so that was a big thing back then. And I love seeing all those hardcovers coming out, man. All of them, like the big three, have your name on them. It's awesome. Like all the way up the Shattered Grid. And big fan of your Nightwing run, dude, and all your stuff on Batman Eternal.
Oh,
And
thank you.
yeah, there is a comic that what was it that I really liked, and man, it was so good, and it's one of my hidden gems I haven't really talked about often, but it is
Okay.
Dead Hand, published
Yeah.
over at Image. Yeah,
Yeah.
solid, man. I really like that story too.
Yeah. That. Well, thank you. That was a really fun, challenging book to do. It's probably the closest thing I've ever done narratively that is more prosaic. It's more almost like novelistic. It's a third person narrator, and I knew when I started on issue 1, I was like, I'm gonna regret this because it takes me so long to write voiceover. I have like very strong opinions about voiceover in comics,
Hmm.
and if you're gonna do it, it should be telling you something you're not seeing. It should be either playing counter to the visuals in the story, or it should be working its own kind of thematic through line that coalesces kind of the overall issue together. And that's very hard to pull off. It just takes time. It's like very kind of like surgical writing. And so anytime I have to write a book with voiceover, it inevitably takes me like twice as long. Because you want to make sure that you're saying something worth saying. You're not just saying what the art is already doing or whatever else. So when I started Dead Hand, I remember writing the first issue and like really challenging myself, going, all right, I'm going to do this. And by issue 4, I'm going to be really, I'm probably going to regret this, but I'm going to do it. And I didn't regret it, but it was definitely, it was a unique challenge. The one thing that I really liked about it, sorry, I haven't thought about that book in a few years, but what it allows for, that approach, that stylistic approach, allows for taking like, it allows for you as a writer the ability to really kind of control the narrative in a pretty unique way. Like, again, like a novel, like you can kind of take these interludes and go explore or whatever, or contextualize or whatever, and see a flashback of it because the narration is leading you through the story. And so it allowed me to kind of play with structure in a way that normally I don't.
Hmm.
So that was, like I said, I'm glad I did it. Yeah.
I I remember reading that a couple of years ago, and I was thinking, man, this would make such a good movie, and it kind of reminded me of like an '80s movie that I saw as a kid. But
Mhm.
was John Travolta's in it, where they go to a little small town, and it's like a Russian town trying to pretend to be Americans. Anyway, it's a great story. So
Mhm.
I really enjoyed that, and it was nice to see you just kind of everywhere, man. And all the books that I enjoyed, you worked on Nightwing. You
Mhm.
were at Marvel Comics for a little bit. You did a Captain America. You worked on Batman Eternal. When I
I
think
did, yeah.
that was after Nightwing became
Mhm.
Grayson, I think, and then Power Rangers,
Right.
which I think to me surprised me because I didn't grow up with Power Rangers. My younger brothers did, but I'm always been a big fan of giant robots. So I didn't have the ties to the show,
Mhm.
and I read it and I bought it because I love collected editions. I bought it on a whim because the presentation of the hardcover was just amazing. So I bought
Mhm.
the first year one, and I loved it. I
Mhm.
loved the writing, the art. You made me care about these characters. I had no idea like I didn't know anything about these characters. Like I said, I didn't grow up with the show. I was familiar with like the whole Sentai story and things like that. Like I came from over there, but how did how did that happen? How were I assume you were a fan growing up. Actually, I read your intro, so I know you.
How did what? Sorry, how did what happen? How I did the
How
book?
did yeah? Was it
Oh
pitched
yeah.
by you or was it pitched by Boom?
Well, let's see. The short version is that I reached out to there was someone who worked at Boom. I don't know if he's still there. Named Bryce Carlson, who was a managing editor there for a while, and he and I actually went to college together.
Oh,
and so I remember we used to G chat. This is probably like 10 years ago now, 9 years ago. I was on Nightwing and we were G chatting about just like random stuff. And I had the thought, I was like, you know what you guys should do? I was like, you guys should get the Power Rangers license. Like, because that could be like, I know what that book could be. I mean, you could do kind of a straight up legitimate superhero series, a la something like a teen team book, something like early X-Men or actually New Teen Titans, but contemporary and updated from what the show did without any of the limitations that the show had. You know, you don't have to rely on pre-existing footage. You're not dealing with actors. You're not dealing with, sorry, not actors. I mean like actor availability, things like that, you know.
yeah.
You're also not dealing with a budget constriction or restriction or constraints. So I remember mentioning it to him, and then he was like, you know, it's funny you say that. We've actually been talking about that. And I was like, oh, cool. And then kind of forgot about it. And like a few months later, there was an announcement that Paper Cuts got the Power Rangers license. And so I was like, oh, I guess Boom, it wasn't that serious or didn't work out, whatever. And I kind of forgot all about it. And then in 2015, I was walking down the street in my old neighborhood and was walking back to my apartment. It was a few days before San Diego. And there was a press release that went out, and I think it was Newsarama, and it was like Boom Studios acquired the license to Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. And the key art that was included with that press release were all the Cody Montes helmet covers. And it was like, yes. Oh. I stopped where I was on the sidewalk going, exactly, that's the book. Like, I know what that book is. And so I reached out to Bryce and I was like, hey man, like, who do I got to kill to write a pitch for a backup story? Like, hopefully not you, because you're the only one I know over there. And I figured that they had the book already cast, but they didn't. And so Bryce said, you know, your name actually has come up to, you know, maybe do the series. Like, do you want to pitch? And I said, okay. And I asked, I was like, is it a bake off? And it was. So there were other writers that were pitching. And I had a little window before I was going to make this short film, The Shadow Hours, that I wrote and directed. And so I said, okay, let me take a few days, or let me take a week and think on it and figure out what I would want to do. And I put it together and I basically outlined a version of what year one was, culminating in a third arc where it's like a dystopian future. And this, I didn't have the alternate timeline Tommy yet. That came a little later in development, but not that much later. But I built it out and I sent it in and I told him, I was like, look, this is what I would do. This is the version of the book that I would want to do. Like, if you're into it, cool. If you're not, no harm, no foul. But like, I am not interested in writing like in between, like lost episodes of the TV show or stories that like explain continuity from, you know, a show from 25 years ago or 20 years ago, whatever it was. Yeah. For me, it was about not writing the series as it existed. And I've said this a million times, but I never wrote the series as it existed. And I didn't try to write the series as I remembered it existing. I tried to write the series as I remembered it making me feel. And so this sense of kind of epic scope and larger than life stakes and relationship drama, you know, high school clique kind of relationship drama. And that really just kind of became my mantra on the book. And there was a really great supporting team around me at that time, and Boom supported the book in a really big way. And it turned into a really big moneymaker for them. So, and still, I mean, they're still iterating off of my stuff, and they're still, I saw they're doing a Kickstarter or something for hardcovers.
That's what I was. There's like a box set with like 5 hardcovers.
Oh, cool.
One of them was like a standee of a Megazord, like that you can get like one of the tiers.
Yeah. We'll see if I get any copies. I mean, I didn't even know they were doing a Kickstarter, so much less reprinting those hardcovers, because this has been out of print, because they're expensive books to make.
It's okay. So I remember actually talking to you about that when I was in Chicago, and I found out a lot about how little creators are, how little creators know about these things that have their names on them. Because I talked to everybody around there, and being a collected editions guy, I always thought, oh, well, then obviously Kyle Higgins knows when these books will be reprinted, but that's not the case, right?
No.
And
I mean,
they did one reprint, I think, last year. Yeah, they did a reprint last year.
Yeah, they did. They did a reprint, I think, of. I think they did one of, because they've been out of print for a while, and they go for a decent bit of money on eBay. But I mean, people would ask me all the time during conventions, and unfortunately, I don't know. I had no idea, So I mean, I've been out of Power Ranger world for a couple of years now. But I'm really proud of the work I did and the book, and I'm really happy that it resonated for people. And again, like, I must have done something right, because they continue to mine that well that I dug for them. So that's, absolutely. I think I just mixed a lot of metaphors there, but I got you. Continue to mine that mine. I don't know. But so I really pride myself when I come onto a project, and especially kind of something brand new, or a piece of existing IP, or God, I hate even just using that term, but like existing characters or an existing property, where it's like, hey, we want to figure out a new way to do this and put a fresh coat of paint on it. I really, really pride myself on looking at the foundation and how I'm going to build it. I'm a really, really big kind of believer in taking full advantage of concept and the promise of the premise, and for me, like, I talk about this a lot, like whenever I do like writing panels or things like that, like, do you want your car to go 0 to 60 in 4 seconds, or do you want it to last 200,000 miles? Because those are two very different engines. So you have to think about what you're building for. Are you building for an ongoing series, something that hopefully can generate story and different offshoot stories for many years? Or are you telling a closed story? Hadrian's Wall, for example, my Image series, like, people have asked me about that over the years, kind of a number of times, of like, oh, will there be more? Is it going to be an ongoing series? And it's like, well, it's a murder mystery on a spaceship. So unless somebody else dies, there's, I don't know that the world is interesting enough to try to explore to greater lengths. What's interesting is the relationships that book deals with, and X's having to navigate each other and find a way to forgive each other, So Power Rangers, again, for me was very much like it was an opportunity to do a lot of the things that I wasn't able to do when I wrote at DC during the New 52, So like that Nightwing run, for example, like I'm proud of it in many ways, but also it's a little bit bittersweet, because it's a very challenging era to be a new creator in, much less a new creator who's it was a lot of pressure. It was a lot of pressure, and a lot of like 11th hour changes and mandated editorial stuff. And like I said, it was just a lot of pressure, a lot of different interests that were kind of all kind of swirling at that time.
And I have to say, when you get put in a situation like that, I mean, you were still let me see, you had worked at Marvel for a little bit. You had written some independent stuff, and you written your own things too, right? Like your own movie by the time you were working at DC?
Well, no, not really. I I had written a short film that I directed in college that was a big superhero noir called The League, which became the point of influence for Cowl later. And from that film, Marvel, Joe Quesada had seen it. And so he reached out to me to tell me how much he enjoyed it. And I responded and said, well, thank you. I mean, I love your work, and I did. And I said, if you're ever, he was like, he ended the email with like, if there's ever anything I can do for you, let me know. And I wrote back and I said, well, if you're ever looking for new writers, you should let me know. And he said, well, we're always looking for new writers. And so I ended up pitching to Tom Brevoort for about a year. I pitched about 20 different one-shot story ideas or mini-series, but they were like fully broken, like contained stories. And eventually I landed this like really cool Captain America one shot that I co-wrote with one of my best friends. And we were kind of writing partners for a while. Alex Siegel. We did Howl together, and we did Hadrian's Wall together as well, and some Batman Beyond stuff.
Hadrian's Wall, man.
Yeah.
Solid.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I did that. I did that one shot, and then that led to an Avengers one shot that was focusing on the Vision's origin. And then from there, I also, I met Mike Martz, who was the Batman Group editor. And so I started doing some work in the Bat Office, and it was right at the time that the New 52 was being planned. So I went from, I'd only written one shot to suddenly I was writing Supreme Power as a miniseries at Marvel. I was writing Gates of Gotham as a miniseries at DC. And then I was writing Nightwing as an ongoing series at DC and Deathstroke as an ongoing series at DC, both for the New 52. And it's like, I like to joke that every mistake I made double because I did it on this other book, like I wasn't writing like a mini and an ongoing at the same time. I was writing 2 minis and 2 ongoings, having never written a mini or an ongoing before. So it was, like I said, I was still learning. I was still trying to figure out, just as a writer, well, how do I, achieve consistency? How do I do this day in and day out? And it was certainly a learning experience. And I'm grateful for the opportunity, and I'm grateful that I got to have a relationship with my all-time favorite character. And Dick Grayson, he made me a better writer. So that's a thing that I like to, or I try to hold on to, and that's the lens that I try to look at that era through.
Did you at least get a copy of that omnibus, then, the Nightwing omnibus?
I did. DC is, to their credit, DC is great with comps. Like, they're great. Not only did I get a copy of it, but Scott, and I can't pronounce his last name, but he was the collected editions. He ran collected editions for DC. It starts with an N. Scott actually reached out to me and said, hey, we're going to do an omnibus of your Nightwing run. And it was always funny to me because my Nightwing run was like the only modern era Nightwing that didn't have oversized hardcovers or regular sized hardcovers either. Like, it was the only Bat book. It's very strange. It was the only Bat book that didn't get hardcovers during the New 52, and it outsold like a number of books that got hardcovers, So I was always like, come on, guys, I want a hardcover. Like, please, like, how do we do this, And so, it's 10 years later now, they did the omnibus. And so when Scott told me, he was like, do you want to write? Did I write something for it? I think I did.
It's in the, yeah.
Is it? But he was great. He like, I didn't realize that it would mean as much to me as it ended up meaning, but he was like, well, do you have any preferences for the cover or for the title? So I named the omnibus. I wanted to call the omnibus The Gray Son of Gotham, but I didn't want it to be confused with Grayson, the Tim and Tim Seeley, Tom King series that they did after my Nightwing series. So it was like, okay, the Prince of Gotham, like that, I can make, I like that. I got to choose some pull quotes on it, and I got to choose the front cover and the back cover of the printed hardcover as well. So it very much felt like it was a really nice kind of cathartic. I don't know. It was cathartic. It was cathartic when it showed up, especially. Like I remember it, like really kind of took me by surprise how much it mattered to me to hold it in my hands. It's like 4 years of my life, good and bad, all in this one giant book that you could totally break your foot if you drop it on it. You know, like it's yeah.
There's a lot of you in that book, and I'm not just talking about the art, or I'm sorry, the story, because you choosing a lot of that hardly happens with collected editions, like where they go out of their way to reach out to a writer or an artist. That's really cool.
Not to put a damper on the story, but then Scott got laid off.
Yeah.
And he finished it. He finished the copy, all the text for it. And then all of a sudden, everyone at DC got laid off. And I didn't know. I was like, is this thing even going to come out now? Like, I wasn't sure. So when it did show up, it was kind of like a Schrodinger's Nightwing moment where it was like, I was opening
the box.
I was opening the box and I was like, I don't know what this is going to be, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I lost all my contacts over there. I mean, it was pretty bad over at DC, because a lot of us fans, just like you, also didn't know if these books were going to come out that they were soliciting, and some were getting canceled, some were getting. But I'm glad. You know, it's crazy to think, but that is the only Nightwing omnibus, right? So when people there's Grayson, but
Pete Tomasi has a Nightwing omnibus as well.
He has the Batman and Robin omnibus.
No, his Nightwing run has an omnibus.
Unless you know.
Am I wrong? Now we're gonna look it up.
Well, now I was like, well, unless you know something I don't, because like a lot of people are like, where's the Chuck Dixon stuff? So it's really cool to see that your run being collected as. Seriously, it's like the only Nightwing run. There's the Grayson run, of course.
Did you freeze? Oh, there you are.
Mm-hmm. Like there's the Grayson run, and that is they have been focusing on the 52 era for collected editions in so long. Like, just about most of the series, including Deathstroke, had an omnibus from the New 52 era.
My Deathstroke wasn't in an omnibus.
Oh, yeah, they never finished. They never finished it. They bounced around too, because now we're getting a rebirth Deathstroke as opposed to we got the first part of Deathstroke from New 52.
No, we didn't, because I wrote the first 8 issues of that Deathstroke series. So I've never seen that collected in anything outside of the softcover. I did the first 8 issues, and then they decided to take me off the book and replace me with Rob Liefeld. And
I think most of us remember that.
And so then Rob did issues 9 through, I don't remember. And then I can't remember who came in after him. It may have been Robert Venditti. No, who was it? Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that run, like I'm really proud of that book, but it's not one that like comes up that often.
It was the Tony Danielle run. That was what they decided to collect. So
cool, yeah.
But before we get started talking about Radiant Black,
yeah,
I do have to ask about the. So while I may not have had ties and childhood memories of Power Rangers, I did grow up with Ultraman and Ultra 7.
Mm-hmm.
That was my jam.
Yeah.
So how did that happen? Like, how did you get attached to that project with the Rise of Silver Surfer, Rise of Ultraman?
I would read the Rise of Silver Surfer. That's a good, but we should pitch that. How did I get attached to that? It was Tom Brevoort, who was my very first editor when I was 22 or 23 years old. Tom and I hadn't worked together since. And then in 2018, I went back to Marvel to do the Winter Soldier miniseries with Rod Reese. Mm-hmm. And from there, that was the first time I'd worked with Tom in almost 10 years. And so I think that put me kind of back on his radar a little bit. But also Tom's sneaky. Tom knows a lot about what people are doing. Like, he's got an eye. I don't know how he is aware of, like, there's so much on his plate, but he seems to be across everything. And so he knew. He's also a really, really big Kamen Rider fan. So we had spoken about Kamen Rider a few times. And I told him a few things that I was doing in my Power Ranger run. But, I didn't know if he remembered or if he even had read that. I think we were like messaging. And so then all kind of out of nowhere, he just emailed me and said, I know this is a little bit of a weird question and it kind of pigeonholes you as the Tokusatsu guy, but do you have any interest in Ultraman? And I was like, I do have interest in Ultraman. I don't know that much about him, but I do have interest. And so, and then I told him, I said, the one question, and then he explained to me kind of what was going on and everything. And I said, well, the one question I would ask is, would you be open to me doing it with a co-writer? Not to say it's the only way I'd be able to do it, but I have somebody that is a newer writer that I really, really, really believe in. And I believe in him so much that I put together and edited his first creator-owned series at Image, self-made. His name's Matt Groom. We met actually from a Power Ranger podcast that I did with him and his good friend, Michael Basudel. And Michael now is my editor on Radiant Black. Matt co-writes Ultraman with me, and Matt is writing the currently running massively successful Kickstarter for Inferno Girl Red that I'm the editor on as well. So
nice. And you guys met through a podcast, huh?
Through a Power Rangers podcast. Yeah, they have a Power Rangers review podcast.
That's awesome.
Where they've been doing it for like 5 or 6 years. It's called Ranger Danger. And they have this mission to watch every episode of Power Rangers and then talk about it. Of the two of them, Michael likes Power Rangers. Matt likes the idea of Power Rangers, I think would be a fair.
I understand that. Yeah.
Yeah. And, it's the podcast is hysterical. Like, they're very, very funny, especially together. And they had reached out when I was on the book. I think it was Michael or someone tweeted at me and said, you should do an interview with Ranger Danger. And I kind of looked at their Twitter feed and I really liked it. And I was like, and the other thing, I've never told Michael this, their social graphics were like really like sharp, like really like a really nice aesthetic, and was like, oh, okay, there's something here that even your stream right now, I can see like what you've built here as a background. It's like you spent some time doing that, and that matters, especially to creators, like if we're going to do an interview or do a podcast, etc. Like, I don't know. I mean, you've seen Radiant Black. You see how much design matters to me.
Dude, yeah.
So I said, yeah, I'll do an interview. And then I really, really liked them both. And we talked for like a half hour off air, just because I was coming into this world and this fandom cold. I'd been a fan when I was a kid, but, I was 8. And so I was asking them questions, and then I just really liked them. And I'd always wanted to do a monthly podcast where I kind of like break down that month's issue that came out, almost like a commentary. So I proposed to them. I was like, hey, would you guys be interested in doing this? And so we did it, and we started talking for, initially it was like once a month, and then slowly we started talking every day. And at a certain point, like a year in, Matt like surprised me with something and kind of helped me out on something. And I realized that he's a writer, and I was like, do you want to write comics? Because what he did was very, very good. What he showed me, and he's like, it's all I want to do. And I was like, how have you not told me that? And he's like, I don't want to be that guy. Like, that's not what we were talking about or for, and
respect.
And I was like, oh, well, cool. Yeah.
That's cool. That is such a cool way to meet the guy that you're working. Well, actually, the two guys you're working with now. That's really cool, man.
Yeah.
And growing up, I watched, like, I liked Ultraman, but I loved Ultra 7. So it was really interesting when Marvel was throwing this idea that Ultraman was going to come into the Marvel comics, and I was like, really? I had no idea about the rights. I don't even know where the rights laid, because I know there's an Ultraman manga available. I think Kodansha prints it, or it might have been Viz, but I had no idea that they had to acquire the rights. And the rights with those kind of shows are always interesting too, because like, well, Robotech's a nightmare. Well, no, I guess not anymore. That kind of changed, but it's like some things cannot be collected here. Some things can't be used. So,
yeah, my understanding, and I don't really want to speak to this too much because I don't want to get out over my skis here, and be wrong about something. But my understanding was that there was a lawsuit for many years that kind of prevented Ultraman from being in the West, and specifically in America.
mhm.
And I believe it was a lawsuit that was connected to Taiwan for different, outside of, I think outside of Asia or outside of Japan, licensing or licenses.
Mhm.
But again, I don't really know much about that, so I don't want to.
Yeah, no, it's okay. It's
speak. But my understanding is that whatever that was resolved, and so Subaraya is able is looking to do more with Ultraman. That's why we have the Netflix anime and some of the different licensing deals that you're seeing. Mill Creek doing those beautiful steelbook Blu-ray remastered editions of the original series. Well, several of the original series actually, and then Marvel and that book, the Ultraman comics really come about because of Tom and CB Cebulski. CB's a big Ultraman fan and Tokusatsu fan, and lived in Japan for a period of time, and just I think I know the book's important to him, but I'm pretty sure he's the one that really kind of facilitated, like, hey, as Marvel, we want to do this,
Yeah.
So I'm glad he did, because Matt and I have had a blast building out this series.
I thoroughly like that. That first one was solid, because I love the way that's one of my favorite things about the way that you write is you're telling a long story, and I'm in. I'm like, okay, uh, powers are. I don't want to spoil it for anybody that's read it, because the trade paperback just came out a couple months ago. But yeah, I didn't expect it to go the way that it went, which is the way the Power Rangers was written. So let's get to Radiant Black, because
Sure.
that, man, okay. So here you are. It's not Nightwing, it's not Power Rangers, it's not something that has been previously seen on screen, it's not an ongoing character. How different is writing this book than everything else? Well, I guess with the exception of some of the creator-owned stuff that you've done in the past.
Well, people want to buy this book, so that's nice. Like, trust me, I've done creator-owned books that people don't want to buy, and I've done now a creator-owned book that people do want to buy, and I definitely prefer this one, this model. Like, it's I can keep making creator-owned books that people want to buy. I like this. This feels good. It's sold well. Like, it means that we're going to be able to keep making more of it.
Love hearing that.
Really, really nice. We're not sweating numbers. I mean, obviously we pay attention, and I'm very like aware of what numbers are on it, just because I've been doing this. I've been writing comics full time now for technically be 10 years. I quit my day job as a sound editor in order to go write Gates of Gotham, Deathstroke, and Supreme Power. Before that, I'd written. I was doing all the writing I was doing was in addition to this, my job with Hollywood Edge and Sound Deluxe. But so 10 years, and if you stick around long enough, hopefully you pick up a few things and you learn a few things, and learning how to kind of present hopefully a series or a book. And also what the rate of attrition means on a book is something that, I've just kind of learned the hard way. And so, Yeah, so it's nice. Like I'm on top of that stuff, but like we're not sweating it too much. We're gonna have a pretty fun announcement tomorrow.
Oh, awesome.
So a few, actually, maybe a few announcements tomorrow. So, and that is also when issue 3 of Radiant Black comes out. So it'll be
Oh,
could be a
good.
fun day.
I just read it. I got an advanced copy from it.
Oh, you did? Oh, good.
So I
Good.
was like, oh, well, I'm not gonna talk about it. But yeah, people. My wife and I both reviewed the very first 2 issues, and
Mhm.
Image was kind enough to do a giveaway that we gave away the very first issue, which did really well. And like
Right.
some of those variants are impossible to find now. And so good for you,
Yeah.
man. Love
Oh,
hearing
thanks, man.
that.
Thank you. But yeah, I guess to more pointedly answer your question, like what the difference is,
Yeah.
I mean, it is different. It is different. Here's the fundamental difference. Every single decision, well, maybe not every, the majority of decisions or cool things that we do have started with a very simple sentence. Hey, wouldn't it be cool if, and then we do it. The trailer, the score that we're doing right now that Sam Ewing is composing. We just did a live orchestra on last Monday, and we released that yesterday.
I saw some people in the chat talking about the Life Orchestra.
The website, the social graphics, the design aesthetic, like everything. I mean, and we have so much stuff planned. I have the first 25 issues like broken.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Like I know we're going to be doing stuff coming up here. Issue 4, you may want to have me back on after issue 4 next month, because I don't want to create a false equivalency here, but like, you know, that twist in Invincible,
Yeah,
like around issue 7, we were like, oh yeah, yeah.
The one that we're all hoping that's how the season finale goes.
No, they did it at the end of the pilot.
Oh yeah. Okay, yeah, that one. Gotcha.
Yeah, where
Which
you
is
go
a
like,
smart
oh,
thing to do.
what this book is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
you should read issue 4 of Radiant Black. So we're actually racing to get it to the printer right now. So, but yeah, we have a lot of kind of really big stuff coming up and planned. And the cool thing is, especially when your book is selling, it makes it easier to actually execute all of those things, all of those cool ideas. And because it's Image, we as the creators own everything. So Marcelo, Michael, and I own everything on Radiant Black. And that makes decision-making very easy. You know, it's not like you have to, you know, I'm not having to ask editorial approval, or, you know, if there's certain cover artists and it's like, they're outside of the budget of the predetermined budget of the book. And you know, it's just, writing work for hire stuff it scratches a different itch than writing creator owned. Like they're very different. And you know, sometimes when I bounce back and forth, I sometimes have to remind myself, it's like, this one isn't mine. Like I'm going to like put everything I have of myself into it, but it's ultimately not mine. So I can't get too attached.
Yeah.
You know, and that's okay. But Radiant Black is ours. So
There was a letter at the end of your first issue, man. Like
yeah.
my wife and I was like, that was a powerful letter, because there's a lot of you in this character. I immediately, you know, I think most people, I'm in my 40s, I think most people resonate. Like, oh, didn't work out for Nathan. Like he's back home with his mom, and that sucks. Nobody wants to go and do that, but sometimes you have to. Mm-hmm. So I really enjoyed both of the issues, and then, well, I read the third issue, but can't talk about it. But yeah, the first 2 issues, like the design, the way the powers are used, and then of course the new, right? Like it's a new thing that's happening to this character. Mm-hmm. It's, you know, it's Hal Jordan getting in the ring for the first time. It's Iron Man putting on the suit for the first time, and having to learn with the character the limitations and what where this all came from. So it's very cool, especially when they find the thing, and that was a really cool trick. Because it's in the distance. Where is it exactly?
Oh, the radiant, the black hole.
Yeah, that was
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. That was fun. Marcelo just keeps getting better and better. So this is his first U.S. book as an illustrator. I mean, he was a colorist for many years.
Mm-hmm.
So he illustrated some of his own work in Brazil. But it's funny, when we first started talking about doing this, I didn't really realize that he drew. And then every artist that I talk to who knows him through Brazil or in Brazil, they all, like, to a person, were like, I would be like, oh, I'm doing this with Marcelo Costa. Like, he's a great artist. And I was like, oh, well, I'm glad, like, because we're doing this book together, you know? But it really has, it's a special alchemy when you find it, and when you're totally in sync with an artist, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm constantly chasing that, like, in all of my books. Like, I start like Google Hangout threads on all my books, because I want everyone to be on everything. I want everyone to see the new art that comes in. I want them to be a part of the conversation. You know, we're bringing a colorist on for the series, because Marcelo is currently drawing and coloring everything himself, and it's too much work. So we're going to bring a colorist on, starting with the second arc, and then there's someone that's going to come on like much further down the line for certain reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And even though that is like a year away, like, he's in the thread now, you know, and he's like super hyped and pumped for it. And that's the point, is like, make it, like, in the letters column, to reference it as you brought it up. One of the things I talked about that is important to me is I want to try to use this book to build something of a community. But that also applies to the creative team that's making the book, you know?
Of course.
So it's, I think, like, there are things that we've done in the book that we would not, there's no way we would have been able to pull off if it was a traditional kind of work for hire book, just from a, like, sometimes work for hire stuff is like, it's a little slow moving, because there's approvals, because,
Yeah,
you know,
I understand.
it's not like, I can't, if I'm doing a book at DC, I can't call the designer who's doing like all the pre-press stuff or doing logos and things like that. You know, like, I'm that's outside of my purview, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So on something like Radiant Black, well, Michael is the editor and the designer. And so we talk 24/7, you know? And so there's no egos. There's, like, this is truly collaboration in the best sense of the word. And that's what makes it so not only fulfilling, but fun. And it kept me sane in 2020, making Radiant Black.
Well, I love hearing that. I love the collaboration and all of you getting along, and and you're right. It is different than an editor going, "Hey, we need to pull this guy off the book because so and so needs to come in, and we got a brand new artist. He's a lot cheaper to work with. Hey, you need to include."
I don't think I've had that happen to me, but
oh man, it's happened to a lot of like creators. I mean, like it's. Yeah, I've interviewed Chris Claremont a few times. He talks about how many times Salvador La Roca got pulled from him because that's like one of his favorite artists. And he's like, "Yeah, you just got to listen to the editor, you know, or the editor in chief wants to pull him on a book. I get stuck with someone else, and then just keep writing."
I actually, you know what? I do know of one instance. It didn't happen to me, but I was there. I was, you know, around where there was an artist where it was like, but he wants to keep drawing the book. And they're like, but he's really expensive. And so we need him on a whatever, you know? And it's like, but he wants to draw it. And we want him to draw it. And like, why? And it's like, and so, yeah, there is like, there is something about resources that you do have to, they're, like I said, they're different worlds. They're different worlds. And I've worked with some really amazing editors work on Marvel and DC jobs. I mean, Tom is one of the best editors I've ever worked with, hands down. Like, no one gives story notes like Tom. I mean, he's just surgical. Like, so I've learned a lot from editors that I've worked with as well. So I hope I don't sound like doom and gloom on work for hire editors or Marvel DC editors, because that's not
you don't. Not at all. Not at all. All right. So you mentioned 25 issues, maybe more. How much say do you have on the creator-owned books? Like, say, you make trade paperbacks of Radiant Black because you want other people that are trade waiters to get the books. And then there's collectors, right? The collectors are like, oh, I only get hardcovers or nothing. And then how much say do you have in that? Like, since this is a creator-owned thing that Image is publishing, do you say, let's do a hardcover of like the first 25 issues?
I can. It will be a conversation, and that conversation, will inevitably have to get into the realities of the market and what the book is doing sales wise from a monthly standpoint, as well as from a trade paperback, like soft cover standpoint. But like, trust me, we all love beautiful hardcovers. Like, Michael is like dying I think he's already started on like, okay, here's what the hardcover could be.
Yeah, love it.
I mean, that's like, come on. Like, I just recorded a 59-piece orchestra for a soundtrack accompaniment. You think I don't want a beautiful hardcover? Like, yeah, I'm
variant covers.
Everyone has to buy Radiant Black monthly so that it's that much easier for us to get that big, beautiful, oversized hardcover across the plate.
Well, okay, so let's go back. Let's backtrack just a little bit and say, how do you know? When do you know to say, okay, we have 6 issues in. I think that's good enough for a trade paperback. Or you're like, wait, let's make it 7 issues because I kind of want to wrap up this story arc in issue 7. Like, when do you know, like, how many issues would make a good trade?
Well, every project and every book is different. I just know. I mean, I structure for that. So I like 6-issue trades. They feel a little heftier than 5-issue trades. I've done 4-issue trades before. On, I think Power Rangers was 4 issues.
Yeah, they came out as 4. They had all the variants in the back though.
Yeah. So I like 6-issue trades personally. And so for Radiant Black, it was like, okay, well, part of the format on Radiant Black comes from my time on Power Rangers, where we kind of developed this idea of like, in order to keep Hendry Preseccia on the series as the main artist, it was like, well, I figured out like I could structure 4 one-shots. And if I do it right, that one shot will explore or recontextualize some big piece of information or twist or something that happens in the main story. So it doesn't feel like a fill-in. It is additive, or something will be introduced in it that I'll then, it's the promise of the premise of we're going to explore this later,
Yeah.
And we're kind of doing the same thing with Radiant Black. So volume 1 is going to be 6 issues as a trade paperback. Okay. The first 5 issues are, Marcelo and I. And then we just announced last week that issue 6 is a very special one-shot that David LaFuente is going to be drawing.
Okay.
Ultimate Spider-Man.
Yeah.
My favorite artist in the industry. And Cherish Chen, who's a newer comics writer, but who's really, really good and has really impressed me. She's co-writing the issue with me as well. So that'll be issue 6. And then arc 2 starts with issue 7. And so issue 7, so the second trade will be issues 7 through 12.
Okay. I love it that you got it all structured in your head. I think that's great.
Of course.
I think that's great. And it gives you, it gives you the freedom of like creator own of saying, okay, I think that's a good stopping point for a collected edition.
Yeah. I mean, part of it too is like, I really wanted to do something that prioritized the monthly reading experience. I feel like we have conditioned a lot of readers to wait for the trade paperback because we are writing for the trade paperback. And I'm a big believer in a full narrative experience every single month. And so Radiant Black in particular is very much structured. So I have to squirt my cat. He
was curious, hanging on the back the whole
no,
time.
no. Every time I do a Zoom, he climbs behind my computer just to mess with the cables. So unfortunately, this is not my first rodeo a year into a pandemic, working at home all the time, working at home, I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what were we talking about?
It's okay. We were. I was asking about the trade and trade winning, and then how you decide to collect how many issues into a specific trade.
Right. No. I was just trying to say that the monthly reading experience needs to be fulfilling, to me, and so I'm trying to write more done-in-one stories that also have threads that are building in the background. I think issue 3 is a really good example. Like, it is very much a done-in-one, but it is progressing some of the mythology in the background.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to be careful how much we say here.
Yeah, I know.
Well, it's out tomorrow.
We have a couple more minutes because Kyle's a busy guy. He's got things to do. And we got a shout out here from Nick Barucci.
Hey, what's up, Nick?
Kyle, one of my favorite writers in the industry. He's a big fan of your Magnus series. Shout out to Omar, who has a great channel. Thank you so much.
Nick is the publisher of Dynamite, and Nick is why I got to do that Magnus series, which to this day is one of my favorite books that I've done. Unfortunately, I don't know that a lot of people read it, but I'm really proud of it. So it's a fun book.
One of my favorite things to do on the channel is introduce people to books that I really enjoyed. And
also, hold on a second. Hold on. I want to give Nick a shout out about something, actually.
All right, here you go, Nick.
I haven't told you this. Nick, you did a really, really cool thing at C2E2, I think last year, where we were kind of catching up. Like, it was like, group area, like kind of in the bar in Chicago at the Hyatt. And there were some Marvel editors that I was that were around and I was with. And Nick said, "Do you realize?" And he pointed at me and he told these Marvel editors, he just like sung my praises in front of me to these Marvel editors about the fact that I did a 5-page story that a lot of writers would have spent, 2 issues doing. And I did it in 5. Meaning like no idea is precious. Like, ideas, you come up with more ideas. It's like, oh, that's a good idea. I can do it in 5. Sure, there's a longer version, but like, that's a good idea for right here and what I want to do. And I'm not, it's like, so let's do it. And the Marvel editors were like, that like meant something to them. And so, Nick, you did not have to do that. I don't know if you remember this or not, but thank you very much. That was very kind of you to say.
That is a very cool thing to say, man. That's awesome. I'll take a couple more things. What somebody was asking earlier is Radiant Black. Do you see it as being part of the Image universe, the overall Image universe, or is it this little standalone corner of the universe?
I think you're gonna have to keep reading.
Okay, everybody, keep reading. There's Nick. He said you killed it and earned a praise.
Oh, thank you, man.
Heartwarming story. All right, so. Tevon's saying we have one of my favorite writers because he's behaving in the chat. Yeah, I see that. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. So everybody should be doing their part. Everybody go and check out Radiant Black. It's a fun comic book. It's you don't know where it's gonna go, but that's part of the fun of the comic. So check it out. Check out other Kyle's like
sure.
Well, I was just talking about.
I do have to jump in a second, but do you want to? I feel bad we didn't get to any. Are there any more questions? Like,
oh yeah, there are.
Do you want to?
Yeah,
flag a few that we could rapid fire. We could do like a lightning Radiant Infernal crossover. Man, that would be cool, wouldn't it? Gosh, that would Radiant Black Infernal Girl Red crossover.
You guys
Matt Groom, if you're watching, call me. Oh wait, I'm your editor. That's it's not a bad idea.
It's not a bad idea. There you go.
I wonder if we could make that happen. I wonder.
People are saying this guy. He said it can't be coincidence. I just finished reading the Nightwing U-52 a couple of minutes ago, and then he sees this. So Gabriel is 16 years old, and he's wondering what kind of work, which one of your comics do you recommend for somebody that's 16?
Well, it says, is Radiant Black okay for 16 plus? I'm not quite sure what that question means. Like,
he was asking earlier if what comics that you have worked on would be okay for. He's 16 years old, so for somebody that's 16,
if it's too mature for him at 16, or is he asking?
Yeah, I think that's what he's asking. If it's too mature.
No, I don't think so. I mean, the book is rated T plus, so it's. I mean, right now anyway, it's not a mature rated series. My Nightwing stuff, honestly, my Batman Beyond stuff would be good as well. Dead Hand would be good. Cowl, but I very much think I very much think Radiant Black is appropriate for someone who's 16. But also, maybe you guys can respond in the chat, and actually, you tell me: is Radiant Black so far appropriate for someone at 16?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. Yeah. I didn't see anything wrong with it at all. I mean, maybe a little
because you didn't write it. All I see is what's wrong with it. No, I'm just kidding.
Dude,
I'm very, very proud of the book, to be totally honest. I'm very proud of it. So,
all right, we'll take a couple of more. Let's see. How about any Cal characters you might want to use in Radiant Black?
You should read issue 4.
Okay, read issue 4
of Radiant Black. I mean,
Black.
You should maybe pick up issue 4 of Radiant Black.
Right, and we'll take one more here. I love all these crossover questions. All right, this is awesome because this guy's a big fan. He said, "How did Nathan throw up in his helmet?"
Well, he didn't throw up in his helmet. He threw up through his helmet, which is a fundamental difference because I don't know that I would have. I don't know if in good conscience I could have asked Marcelo to write Nathan throwing up in his helmet and like the vomit that would just that would have actually not been appropriate for a 16-year-old. That would have been a mature book. Down, no. That's actually part of the fun for me was looking at I don't know. I actually really love those like little moments when a superhero is starting out. I did an issue of Batman Eternal where it was Bluebird, Harper Row, her first outing as Bluebird, like in the costume and everything. So I wrote that issue, and I remember a gag that made me smile. Just the idea of it, I was like, "Oh, I have to do this." Where she goes to throw a smoke pellet like at the ground, so it's just, like Ninja Turtles 2, like ninja finish, and she goes to throw the smoke pellet down like a total Batman move, and all of a sudden you hear thunk, and you look down and it's actually a batarang, and she's like, "Oh, that was the wrong pouch." Like she doesn't know which pouches have what yet, Yeah. And so like the vomiting in the helmet, part of it, honestly, it's a little bit of an inside baseball joke, but I have this Lord Drakken helmet.
Oh, nice.
From this isn't the one we used when we filmed Shattered. Oh, the little crystal fell off. I gotta glue it back on. But this isn't the one we filmed with. But I think JDF has that one. But it's made by Anarchy, and so I've worn it. I mean, not like only for fun, obviously. Mm-hmm. But like you try it on and you realize like, oh, this is awful. Like it's truly awful. You can't see, you can't breathe, much less the idea of like having to do flips in it. Mm-hmm. And I just love the idea of like, well, what happens when you do have to throw up in a helmet, But it's magical space helmets. So we've spent way more time on Nathan.
That looks like your favorite question.
I know.
That was your favorite question.
Thank you, Immortal Death God. You know the questions to ask to get the good answers out of the creator.
Man, thank you so much for doing this. And yes, you are more than welcome to come back. We can talk about Radiant Black some more, especially after the fourth issue, like you said. So, thank you everybody
Oh,
for
well,
joining us.
hold on.
What's up?
Gabriel, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to misunderstand what you were asking. I totally understand. So not at all a problem. It was not confusing whatsoever. So
I'm shipping Great Gabriel a bunch of Batman books. Actually, some of Batman Eternal in
oh,
there too.
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, please send Gabriel. I don't know. I was going to say if we were together, I was going to say, let me sign something and you can send it to Gabriel. But
I understand.
Please send Gabriel my regards.
I sure will. He's good. He's good people. Everybody, thank you so much for watching. Gabriel, you stay cool, buddy. And thank you again so much, Kyle.
Yes, my pleasure. Until next time.
All right. Have a good one, everybody.